we urge government leaders to strengthen character education within the national curricula of ASEAN member states, so that youth may successfully adapt to the modern world, while simultaneously developing a way of life that imparts the inner resources, character, and resilience required to overcome the negative influences of modernity and globalization. Thank you very much.
Baik, luar biasa. Terima kasih kita sampaikan kepada para siswa-siswi yang telah memberikan inspirasi dan membanggakan untuk kita semua. Dan selanjutnya untuk memberikan penghargaan, kami mengundang untuk ke atas panggung Menteri Pendidikan, Kebudayaan, Riset dan Teknologi Republik Indonesia, Bapak Nadiem Makarim.
In addition, we would also like to award the students and the school a token of appreciation.
Baik, luar biasa, tepuk tangan yang meriah. Selanjutnya kami mohon berkenan untuk dapat berfoto bersama. Baik, luar biasa, terima kasih kami aturkan.
Thank you and congratulations once again to the students. You may be seated.
Baik, luar biasa. Selanjutnya kami mohon Bapak Menteri berkenan tetap di tempat. Dilanjutkan speech oleh Menteri Pendidikan, Kebudayaan, Riset dan Teknologi Republik Indonesia. Selanjutnya kepada para siswa-siswi kami persilahkan untuk kembali ke tempat duduk.
Excellencies, Ibu Yani Wahid, Kiai Haji Yahya Cholil Staquf, Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama Central Board, Kiai Haji Miftahul Akhyar, Rais Am Nahdlatul Ulama Board, Dr. Kau Kim Horn, ASEAN Secretary General, the Most Reverend Monsignor Januarius Theophilus Matopayo, Bishop of Jayapura, and religious leaders from ASEAN member states and ASEAN Plus, distinguished speakers, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be able to stand here today and talk about interreligious and intercultural tolerance and collaboration. It is wonderful to see so many leaders in Indonesia and ASEAN get together to raise this topic, as this has become one of the foremost priorities of President Joko Widodo's cabinet. And I represent, as Minister of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, the next generation of Indonesians and the programs that we will do to secure a tolerant and multicultural, multi-religious community in Indonesia's future. First, I must say that the challenge is overwhelming. With 17,000 islands, so many different ethnicities, so many different religions, this is a true challenge to talk about multiculturalism, interreligious tolerance, and harmony. But Indonesia has done some unprecedented steps to achieving this. I'm not sure many of you know, but we are, if not one of the first, if not the first country whose national assessment is not just plugged into the international standard of literacy and numeracy. Every year, our national assessment of every single school, a census, has within it surveys on various risks. One is about sexual violence, 2 is about bullying, and 3rd is about tolerance or intolerance. So right now, every single school in Indonesia, every year gets surveyed on intercultural and interreligious tolerance. And that data is presented to every single teacher and principal and local government in Indonesia. They know exactly where they are versus their region. And for the first time in Indonesian history, principals finally are faced with the responsibility of improving their scores on religious and intercultural tolerance. This has been an unprecedented initiative that for the first time, the government of Indonesia is telling every single principal and teacher that this is being measured in your school. This is a huge step forward that I think will change forever the paradigm of what it means to be a school and what is the responsibility of every principal. Not only this, in our new curriculum called the Emancipated Curriculum, called Kurikulum Merdeka, we have taken a big chunk of the curriculum for project-based learning. Up to 20% of class time is done outside of class now. And these projects, we've designed thematic projects. Some of them are climate change related, but a big chunk of them are actually interreligious tolerance and harmony projects. So schools are challenged with creating projects with their teachers and students of how to celebrate interreligious and intercultural harmony by, for example, celebrating all religion national holidays, doing decorations in class, or all kinds of social-oriented projects in the classroom. Not only that, in higher education, we have a mandatory orientation period where students have to take, as part of their orientation, Pancasila and religion courses. We've redesigned this and given the freedom for universities to create project-based, not just normal courses and then you take an assessment in the classroom, but actual project-based leadership that synthesizes religion and Pancasila into a single unified social project for all university students in their first year. On top of that, with the Campus Merdeka program, we have sent over 30,000 students away from their universities out to other universities, very often with vastly different cultures and different religions, to experience one semester of what it is like to be in a different culture, to be in an area with a different set of beliefs, religions, to foster this sense of kebinekaan, the word we use for diversity, as a key principle of our training. Now, these are just some of the things that we have done to encourage all types of tolerance in our educational systems. And what we hope is that local governments, schools, NGOs, and parent communities, we hope they also join us in sending a strong signal to the public of the importance of creating a healthy and safe learning environment for all. In more than 7 decades, Indonesia has embodied an unwavering commitment to building a strong, harmonious community for all of its citizens. Through our chairmanship of ASEAN and our brand new approach in improving our students' civic responsibility, Indonesia is ready to elevate ASEAN as the epicenter of global growth in the spirit of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Please remain on stage to receive a token
Kami
of
mohon berkenan
appreciation.
untuk tetap di tempat. Akan dilanjutkan pemberian token of appreciation oleh Ketua Umum Pengurus Besar Nahdlatul Ulama. Kepada yang terhormat, Kiai Haji Yahya Staquf, kami persilahkan. Baik, terima kasih. Kami haturkan selanjutnya kami persilahkan untuk dapat kembali ke tempat.
Yes, and that was a very inspiring start of our conference today. For now, in the next few hours, we will start our discussions on how to prevent the misuse of culture and tradition in conflict situations, and how shared values in the ASEAN community may help to preserve and strengthen a rules-based international order, and how shared values will be essential to respecting and preserving the environment in a holistic manner that fosters balance within nature and society. Because the conference seeks to precipitate a revival of the cultural and civilizational mentality or worldview that was long characteristics of Southeast Asia prior to the modern era, this cultural and civilizational mentality is characterized by a willingness to accept differences while also preserving and strengthening harmony among society's diverse elements.
Format dari konferensi ini akan berbentuk percakapan dan dialog yang mencerminkan kepedulian untuk menumbuhkan budaya dialog yang saling menghormati dan juga menumbuhkan semangat persatuan dan keragaman.
The format of the conference will be conversational and dialogical, reflecting the conference's concern to foster a cultural mentality of respectful dialogue and a spirit of unity within diversity. For the first session, we would like to kindly invite on stage the representation of Brunei Darussalam,
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor in this lovely morning. We are indeed very grateful to attend in this meeting. Welcome to ASEAN Intercultural and Interreligious Dialogue Conference 2023, held by the Central Board of Nahdlatul Ulama. The themes of the conference is Asian shared civilizational values, building an epicentrum of harmony to foster peace, security, and economic prosperity. We are indeed very fortunate, and we should express our gratitude. We have a great leader of Nahdlatul Ulama, Dr. Kiai Haji Yahya Cholil Staquf, to envision the world of harmony in diversity. And in this morning, let us listen to the speech made by representatives from several countries in Asia. Firstly, from Brunei Darussalam, Muhammad Hafid Hashim, from the Academy of Brunei Studies, University of Brunei. How are you, sir? Thank you very much. And then, representative from Cambodia, Venerable Dr. Yon Sang Yith, the President of Buddhist Association of Cambodia. How are you, sir? Thank you. And then, representative from Malaysia, Sister Lo Pai Ling, President of Buddhist Missionary Society of Malaysia. Thank you very much. Representative from Singapore, Venerable Dr. Sex Quang Ping, President of Singapore's Buddhist Federation. Yes, thank you. And then from China, Master Hu Chengling, Vice President of Taoist Association of China. Thank you very much. And from India, His Holiness Swami Mitrananda, Director of National Project, All India Chinmaya Yuva Kendra. And we have another from Malaysia, Muhammad Shamsuri bin Ghazali. Thank you very much, sir. In this session, we would like to invite all the speakers, one by one, each granted 5 minutes. You may either sit in your seat at the moment, or you might stand in the podium. Let us begin with our bishop from Papua. Without further ado, let us invite either in the podium or in the seat for 5 minutes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Excuse me, I am not speak English fluently, so I speak Indonesia language. Para delegasi yang terhormat, pertama-tama izinkan saya menyampaikan penghargaan yang tulus kepada Kiai Haji Yahya Cholil, Ketua Umum Staquf, Pengurus Pusat Nahdlatul Ulama, yang telah menjadi tuan rumah dan mengundang saya sebagai pemimpin Kristen dari Papua kepada konferensi ASEAN tentang dialog antaragama dan antar budaya yang penting ini. Uskup juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Nahdlatul Ulama melalui Pak Afi atas kunjungannya ke Jayapura. Melalui Pak Afi, Nahdlatul Ulama tidak hanya mendiskusikan masalah kemanusiaan di Papua, tetapi juga memberikan bantuan langsung yang nyata. Suatu hal yang baik yang kami harap dapat terus berlangsung di masa yang akan datang. Saya juga menyambut semua peserta, pemuka agama, cendekiawan dari seluruh kawasan ASEAN Plus, serta pengamat internasional dari Eropa, Amerika, Timur Tengah, Afrika, dan saya menyambut salam dalam bahasa lokal Papua. Wah, 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 wah. Konferensi ini mengambil tema ASEAN Search, Civilization, Values, Building an Epicentrum of Harmony of Foster Peace, Security, and Prosperity, dan melibatkan semua pihak di kawasan untuk memfasilitasi dan membangun konsensus mengenai nilai-nilai bersama. Salah satu strategi tersebut adalah dengan memobilisasi para pemimpin budaya dan agama yang berpikiran sama di seluruh Asia Selatan dan Tenggara, dan mendorong apresiasi baru terhadap prinsip-prinsip dan penghormatan terhadap pluralisme yang pernah menjadi ciri khas kawasan ini. Di tengah pluralisme dan kompleksitas dunia saat ini, dialog menjadi pilihan dan sikap yang paling tepat. Melihat tanda-tanda zaman, gereja semakin menyoroti dialog antar agama sebagai elemen penting dari misi gereja saat ini. Konsili Vatikan kedua dalam Gereja Katolik mendesak umat Kristiani untuk terlibat dalam dialog dan kerjasama dengan para pengikut agama-agama lain, dilaksanakan dengan kehati-hatian dan kasih, dan sebagai kesaksian iman dan kehidupan Kristiani. Secara khusus, konsili mengajar gereja dan mendorong umat Kristiani untuk bekerja dengan semua saudara dan saudari untuk memajukan keadilan sosial dan kesejahteraan moral, perdamaian dan kebebasan untuk kepentingan semua. Secara khusus sebagai pemimpin gereja Papua, kami belajar dari pertemuan antara Santo Fransiskus dari Assisi dan Sultan Al-Malik Al-Kamil 800 tahun yang lalu, dan disegarkan oleh pertemuan antara Paus Fransiskus dan Imam Besar Al-Azhar Sheikh Ahmed Muhammad Al-Tayyib di Abu Dhabi, Uni Emirat Arab, Februari 2019 lalu. Bagi umat Kristiani, perintah kasih dari Tuhan Yesus menjadi pedoman untuk berbuat kasih dan damai dalam lingkungan yang heterogen, tanpa ada maksud untuk mengkristenkan sesama pemeluk agama lain. Para delegasi yang terhormat, sebagai seorang pemimpin Kristen di Papua, kami fokus pada dimensi komunikatif dari aksi tanpa kekerasan dan dialog sebagai jalan dan awal dari pencarian solusi, bukan tujuan akhir. Sejarah menunjukkan bahwa kekerasan belum mampu menyelesaikan konflik Papua. Itu hanya menambah jumlah korban dan memperburuk masalah. Oleh karena itu, penyelesaian konflik Papua secara damai sangat dibutuhkan untuk mencegah pertumpahan darah lebih lanjut. Oleh karena itu, ada dua macam pendekatan dialog yang dikembangkan, yang ditangani selama ini, yaitu kami menggunakan untuk mengurangi berbagai permasalahan di Papua, yaitu dialog eksternal dan dialog internal. Dalam dialog eksternal, pengembangan SDM Papua didorong melalui upaya membangun perdamaian dan menciptakan stabilitas keamanan melalui 3 pilar, yaitu dengan melibatkan tokoh adat, pemerintah, dan gereja. Selain itu, terkait dengan itu di Papua, kami terus menggandeng persekutuan gereja-gereja Papua dengan agama lain untuk secara bersama-sama berusaha untuk menciptakan perdamaian di tanah Papua, karena Papua telah dicanangkan, deklarasikan bahwa dari tahun 2002 dimulai dideklarasikan oleh semua pemimpin agama bahwa membangun Papua tanah damai. Akhirnya, kami ingin mengucapkan terima kasih atas konferensi yang mendukung toleransi, rasa hormat, dan pemahaman atas antar budaya dan agama ini. Dialog sangat penting dalam mendorong pertukaran gagasan yang konstruktif di antara kita. Saya berharap dialog yang dilakukan dalam suasana saling menghormati dan pengertian akan secara signifikan memajukan upaya untuk mempromosikan perdamaian, tidak hanya di kawasan Asia, tetapi juga Indonesia dan Papua. Karena waktu sudah selesai habis, maka saya mengakhiri dengan mengucapkan terima kasih atas perhatian semuanya.
Thank you very much, Most Reverend Monsignor Yanwarius Theophilus Matopai Yu, the Bishop of Jayapura, Papua. Let us now invite Dr. Muhammad Hafid Hashim from Brunei Darussalam with 5 minutes.
Thank you. Respected leaders, respected venerables, Mr. Speaker, and distinguished professors. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the organizers for this invitation and opportunity to participate with the respected venerables in this important conference to share my thoughts on Brunei. It is an honor to be invited here in the wonderful city of Jakarta. Thank you very much. Let me briefly describe about my tiny nation state, Brunei. Brunei is a unique political entity in Southeast Asia. It is the only country in the region that has been framed as an Islamic state by the government in the post-colonial era. Since its independence, Brunei is well known as a peaceful country where the people of different races and religions coexist in harmony. As a monarchical kingdom, the long history of Islam and historical traces of economic activities with other kingdoms in Brunei testifies to the presence of a tradition of many centuries of warm respect and hospitality towards diverse ethnic and religious groups. It claims affinity to its origin in Islam, Malayness, and royalty, which is the national ideology of the Brunei called the MIB. The Sultan has been the leader and ruler for the country and for the Muslims. In Brunei also, the ruler is also the head of Islam. The official version of religious practices is derived from the Shafi'ite school of jurisprudence, even though adoption of other opinions is permitted, especially if public welfare requires such an undertaking. In Brunei, incidences of racial disharmony are non-existent. Until today, there is no record of racial tension in the country. The government practices transparent, fair, and non-discriminatory policies. Staying true to the teachings of Quran, Islam recognizes religious diversity as a normal aspect of human life. It calls for the recognition of religion and also for the freedom religion of all. To preserve the rights to practice other religions, individuals are safeguarded through the codification by the Article 3 of 1 of the 1959 Brunei Constitution. Borrowing from the Islamic theology of religion, the MIB offers a guidance for the population that seeks to address and resolve issues that affects Muslims across cultural boundaries. It emphasizes adopting an attitude of friendliness towards all religions. The Quran does not condemn other religions nor their adherents. Rather, it calls for building of religious humanism for the benefit of peaceful interhuman relations and societies. The Quran also supports for religious freedom within the house of Islam and the world at large. Brunei is also a proud member of ASEAN. Since joining in 1984, Brunei has been actively participating in the ASEAN ministerial meeting to enhance social harmony in this diverse society in Southeast Asia. As a predominantly Malay Muslim country, Brunei has regularly been a strong upholder of ASEAN's constitutive and regulatory norms and principles while becoming a reliable sponsor of ASEAN projects. The philosophy of MIB aligns with Brunei's foreign policy, which emphasizes neutrality, non-interference, mutual respect, and cooperation, among others. These norms are consistent with the ASEAN's principles that have been exercised by the nation state itself. As a nation of boat of peace, Brunei actively participates in global interfaith dialogues and conferences to promote tolerance and understanding of the Islamic faith and proudly representing its unique model of coexistence. As a small nation that holds strongly to the ASEAN culture, Brunei shares the same perception with the Islamic virtues that a caring community is conducive to a more harmonious society, especially in upholding the region's identity. Being the most dynamic and diverse region in the world, any form of conflict and intolerance can destabilize the regional security. For Brunei, religious conflict, especially on religious extremism that has usurped the media today, can devastate our way of life, which is against the Islamic teaching. Now, it is my hope that in this timely conference that we can find a common ground in upholding peaceful dialogues that are key to strengthening the region to achieve harmonious, peace, and prosperous community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, our honor to invite representative from Cambodia, Venerable Dr. Yon Seng Yith, President of Buddhist Association of Cambodia, with 5 minutes.
My deep respect to the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Respected venerable monks, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply honored and very pleased to attend this wonderful conference. Please kindly allow me to share a few thoughts on this. This conference brings together the representatives from ASEAN member states, religious leaders, scholars, policymakers, and civil society to engage in harmony and share values of cultures and a prosperous society. I think that in order to achieve this, we can start from promoting the religious tolerance and understanding by providing a space for religious leaders to engage in constructive dialogue. The religious leaders would have the opportunity to address the misconceptions, stereotypes, and prejudices that can hinder the peaceful coexistence. Through open and respectful conversations, it will pave the way to the fostering climate of acceptance, respect, and appreciation for diverse religious belief and practice. For this point, my humble suggestions to all the stakeholders, I think that religious leaders should not be left behind in order to promote the religious tolerance. Please talk to them and please listen to them. Engage them with all these kind of issues. Only then the religious tolerance can be achieved. In some cases, religious leaders are left behind, and we are trying to find out, trying to seek the religious tolerance. That is impossible. And this religious leader is one of the most effective leaders who can not eliminate, but to decrease the misconception in religious communities. They know how to talk to the people. Good policy is good, effective law enforcement is okay, but that religious leaders is one of the most effective to eradicate, to reduce the misconception among the religious communities. So my humble suggestion, please talk to them, engage them in a constructive dialogue. Second, enhance interfaith cooperation for peaceful coexistence. We are living on earth, but having different faiths. Actually, if we try to seek the similarities in religions before we can sit together and work together, I don't think that it is possible. There are some similarities in religious practice, but not many. My humble suggestion, in order to have interfaith cooperation, try to work together and accept the differences in our own respected religions. For example, I'm a Buddhist. If the people ask me, how about the other religions? I say, yes, all religions are good. If I am asked, which religion you want to practice? No doubt, I say Buddhism. This is my attachment to my religion. And my religious fellow also have the same feeling as I do. So if we are trying to seek the similarities in the religious practice, it's not always possible. There is only one thing that we can start, is to accept the differences. I must accept the other religions. Even though I don't follow them, but I accept them. And I think that by starting from this point, interfaith cooperation can be achieved to some level. And my final point, I'm very sorry, this is not my voice. Actually, my voice is worse than this one. I had a sore throat. The third one, addressing the socio-cultural challenges. In addition to religious matters, the ASEAN community should address the socio-cultural challenges faced by the region. the community should discuss the issue such as cultural diversity, heritage preservation, gender equality, and social inclusion. By recognizing the interplay between religion, culture, and society, the community will ably find the innovative ways to address these challenges and promote social harmony. I think that the cultures, the religions in our Asian communities has so much to offer to the humanity. So we, the Asian member states, are very proud to have this. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bhante. Let us now invite Sister Lo Pai Ling, President of the Buddhist Missionary Society of Malaysia, on the stage with 5 minutes.
Timothy said, okay, 5 minutes, huh? All right. Thank you. Honorable organizers, respected venerable leaders of various religions, distinguished speakers, delegates and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Peace greeting, salam from Malaysia. It is indeed an honor to be here together with my fellow Malaysians, Tuan Shamsuri and respected Venerable Saranangkara, to represent Malaysia in this conference. Firstly, I would like to convey the apologies from my teachers, Venerable Mahinda Mahathira, who is not able to be here in person in view of last-minute circumstances beyond our control. Venerable Mahinda, who is the spiritual and general advisor of the Buddhist Missionary Society Malaysia, a 61 years old leading Buddhist organizations that I had put down his thoughts on religious harmony, a Buddhist perspective. However, due to time constraint, I will not be able to share in full what he has written. Therefore, allow me to read out excerpts which I personally feel will not only be a meaningful contribution to the deliberations at this conference, but also provide better insight of the role of Buddhism in interreligious and intercultural dialogues, leading to the desired peace and harmony. Religious and spiritual tradition have a key role to play in promoting peace, harmony, and stability in the world. What the world needs today is love, an unconditional love that heals the divides based on the color of our skin, the language we speak, and the religions that we profess. This pure, unconditional love is found in the essence of all the religions. From the Buddhist perspective, metta, or loving kindness, is a kind of love. It will help to generate acceptance and goodwill, and will help to transmute any negative perceptions that we may have towards other religions due to certain past experiences. Metta and mindfulness, as taught by the Buddha, are also effective means by which we are able to transform ourselves and help to transform others. We are not able to control what is happening in the world, but we can train and cultivate our own minds to develop the strength, courage, and wisdom to face the challenges taking place today. These practices are not dependent on religious belief, but can be universally applied irrespective of a person, faith, and culture. In this context, I would like to emphasize here the role of education. Education plays an important part in developing the behavioral pattern of an individual. Education has the power to divide and breed hatred. It also has the power to unite and provide loving kindness. Then it will be worthy of the origin Latin meaning of education, to lead forth, leading the minds of young and old from darkness to light. Ladies and gentlemen, the teachings of the Buddha aim at cultivating the mind to understand the true natures of ourselves and the world around us through wisdom and compassion. As we develop greater understanding, wisdom, and compassion, we will naturally become more open and respectful towards other religions and spiritual traditions. Although the degree of openness will depend on our individual level of development, in general, we can say that a Buddhist attitude towards other religions is one of respect and open-mindedness. On that note, I conclude here this little sharing from my respected teachers. And once again, thank you to the organizer for this opportunity to put across what we feel can be helpful in forging interreligious and intercultural peace and harmony. Thank you all. Salam and terima kasih from Malaysia.
Thank you very much, sister. Let us now invite Venerable Dr. Subita, President of International Buddhist Education Center, Myanmar, for 5 minutes. Let us give big applause.
Good morning, everybody. The Honorable President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Joko Widodo, representatives of the ASEAN government and the religious body, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. I am very honored and privileged to build consensus regarding the shared values of peace and prosperity through this important ASEAN summit. Since I am a Buddhist man from Burma, especially the Sagaing regions of the Myanmar, as you know about the Burma, the conflicts, political conflicts, which has experienced the most tragic episodes of the violence conflicts. I came here with a hope that I can see concrete avenues of cooperation from my fellow ASEAN leaders to bring peace to my hometown and my home state. While I did the loving kindness in accordance with the teachings of the Lord Buddha to meditate the conflicts, I am providing some monastic education to conflict affected children and youth to build reconciliation within the community in Myanmar and ASEAN region. My organization, International Buddhist Education Center, IBEC, is headquartered in Sagaing, Myanmar. And I'm also promoting reconciliation among Myanmar diasporas through IBEC Center in Thailand, Nepal, in the Netherlands, and the United States of America. Last year, I attended G20 R20 Summit Bali in Java, in Indonesia. Most of my friends already participated last year's R20 Summit in Bali. Also, 77th United Nations General Assembly in New York City, I also participated to appeal to your head in the healing the pains of the Myanmar people. As the ASEAN member state has extended help to the facilitate dialogue process in the Myanmar, there is nothing more important than focuses on the needs of the children and the young generation of the country. My center has been not only providing the shelter, but also the learning space for the children affected by the conflicts. for which I mobilizes awareness and engagements to protest education from the attacks and the disruption. Right now, my center is hosted over 6,300 students through our community-based monastery education network in the Sangha region, as well as ethnic state as the Chin State, Kachin State, Kenyan State, where the conflicts disrupted the school. Most of them are the homeless, most of them are the village-less, disappear day by day because of the political conflicts and armed conflicts. At this ASEAN conference, I organized ASEAN chair and international leaders to help us reinforce the ideas of the keeping the school safe, uses the dialogues for the sharing education to help the humanitarian path, build confidence to mediate the conflicts. At the same time, I would like to encourage my fellow citizens to pursue the cessation of the violence upon the innocent civilian, religious leaders, school teachers, government state in the sharing. In this ASEAN conference on interreligious, I want to apologize all of the organization Myanmar and ASEAN. Please stop all forms of the violence in the Myanmar and ASEAN region. I would like to ask all concerned parties not to disrupt the sharing education, but to protect the school. Education is a fundamental to peace. Let us promote education as the pathways for interreligious dialogue and partnerships for peace. In conclusion, I would like to request through the international leaders, colleges, and the friends to help us reopen the school in Myanmar by engaging in the dialogues for the futures of the generation to live in the peace and the prosperity. The task ahead of us requires all parties to come together to make school as zone of peace. And we can expand the zone step by step. The international community must help us to achieve this shaming, blaming, pressuring, and sanctioning does not help but makes our people suffer more and more, leave our children without the education in the future. I hope that the ASEAN can lead this initiative. I believe that the current crisis in Myanmar can only be resolved through the constructive dialogue, positive partnership, effective collaboration, and most important of all, by shared values for peace and the reconciliation championed by our religious leader in the region through the beauties of the epicenters of the harmony. Thank you so much for everybody. Thank you so much. May you be free from the dangers and may you be happy and healthy.
Thank you very much. Dear guests, let us now invite representative from Singapore, Venerable Dr. Sek Huang Ving, President of the Singapore Buddhist Federation. 5 minutes for you.
Good morning to all of you, dear organizers, my esteemed fellow speakers and participants. Main themes for me to speak is having harmony in us. According to Buddhist perspective, harmony is the product of human right thought, right speech, and right action. It will not appear to this world naturally, fall from the sky or sprung up from the earth. It emerges by the human's right actions. That it is our human beings' responsibility to uphold the harmony in our life, in the world we live. Now, the question is, why we need harmony? As each of the human beings want harmony in himself or herself. One wants harmony in his or her mind so that he can live happily. In this way, one can see for himself or herself that every being's want happiness and harmony in them also. Thus, this is our responsibility not to create this harmony towards others, or others may do the same thing to us. This is the law of cause and effect. Moreover, each human being is the basic and smallest unit in the family, in the community, in the nation, and in the world. If each of the human beings is having the right thought, right speech, and right action, then the family he belongs to will have harmony at home. Likewise, in the world, will be the peaceful planet. Now, the next question is how human beings can obtain harmony in life. As Buddha mentioned in his teaching, that our mind is the forerunner of all our actions. Thus, training to have harmony in one's mind is the first foremost thing we should do. The training is nothing to do with any religions or no religious substance in it, but it's a way for our life. There are three principles for the training of our mind to gain harmony in it. First, avoid doing all evil deeds. Second, performing all good deeds. Third, purifying one's mind. Under the first principle, one should watchful on one's thought, speech, and body action. Make sure one's thought is not evil towards others, the speech is not irritable to others, and bodily action is not harmful to others. Once we discover that unpleasant thought arises in our mind, one should stop it from being developed into an unhealthy speech, which may cause discord among ourselves with others, or the thoughts may develop into an unhappy bodily action which is not welcomed by others. Furthermore, not to give rise to any unwholesome alone is not enough. One can make oneself become a beneficial to one's fellow human beings by doing all good deeds. Thus, one is encouraged to be generous, to be merciful, and to be a resourceful person in the society. This is the second principle of training our mind. As one performs charitable acts towards others, who will reciprocally good to you? If every human being can do it in this way, I think the world will be the harmonious planet for us to live in. However, from time to time, evil thoughts may arise in certain circumstances that we may feel frustrated. So we must train to have compassion and loving kindness which serve the base for the mind. Once our mind is being trained to have happiness, compassion, and loving kindness, will at all times prevent the negative thoughts to arise, stop the ear, speech, and bodily action. It is advised that we can recite these two verses in our mind in the morning, afternoon, or at home, at night, before going to bed. The verses do not contain any religious substances. The verses are, may I be well and happy, may all human beings be well and happy. As guided by the above three principles for a happy life, Buddhists in Singapore are always perform charities to benefit those who are less fortunate, raise funds in age of foreign natural disasters, inviting other faith followers to participate in our fancy youth exchange programs, etc. With this, we believe we can build strong mutual understanding, foster good relationships, and live harmoniously side by side with people of different faiths and race. May you be well and happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear honorable guests, let us invite now the most venerable Dr. Thich Duc Thieng, a member of Parliament and Vice President and Secretary General of the Executive Council of Vietnam Buddhist Sangha, with 5 minutes.
Good morning, everybody. I Moserbo Tien from Vietnam. Your Excellencies, religious leaders, venerable brothers, distinguished professors and scholars, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of Vietnam Buddhist Sangha, I'm very pleased to express my sincere gratitude to the government of the Republic of Indonesia and the Nahdlatul Ulama, and I'm also could like to thank Dr. Timothy Samuel Shah, Director of the Strategic Initiative Center for Civilizational Values, for inviting me to participate and have speech here at the ASEAN Conference on Inter-religious and intercultural dialogue held by Nahdlatul Ulama in Jakarta today. Here I feel the same love and attachment like brothers and sisters in a large family ASEAN. I could like to wish the conference will be crowded with a great success. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the context that the world we live in has been experiencing many political and security upheaval which evolved in a complicated and unpredictable manner. Erratic, non-traditional security risks, conflicts, wars, terrorism, and ethnic and religious conflict continue in many places. The crisis of ecological environment, climate change, inequality, poverty, and pandemic has been changing all aspects of our life and traditions. This context requires coordination at different levels among the Southeast Asian countries, especially in the field of inter-religious and intercultural dialogue. It's a high time for us to work together to promote the core values of all civilizational and religions such as tolerance, selflessness, generosity, harmony, and peace to continue to solve the global problems. Therefore, I welcome the initiative of Indonesia NGO supported by the government of Republic of Indonesia to organize the ASEAN Conference on Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue titled ASEAN Shared Civilizational Values, Building an Epicentrum of Harmony to foster peace, security, and economic prosperity, confirming the determination and joint action to promote dialogue and cooperation, sharing civilizational and cultural values for our ASEAN common future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam is a Southeast Asia country with a long cultural tradition and a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. Each of the 54 ethnic groups in Vietnam has beliefs and religions associated with its economic, cultural, and social conditions. Religious life in Vietnam is diverse and vibrant, with about 95% of population practicing a belief and religions. All major religions are practiced in Vietnam. Vietnam now has achieved important outcomes in ensuring and promoting human rights in general, in which the right to freedom of belief and religion, especially as follows diversity, harmony, and equality among religions, is guaranteed. All religions make certain contributions in many aspects of social life. Interfaith flowers exist together, mutual understanding and dialogue in the spirit of accepting different while preserving and strengthening harmony among diverse elements of society which play a dominant role in Vietnam. As strongly Buddhist community, the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha has always been active, proactive, promoting mutual understanding, increasing tolerance, dialogue in the spirit of understanding and respect among belief, religion. From the practice of Vietnam, I could like to make some suggestions. First, the government and religion expand and promote cooperation, dialogue, and information sharing mechanism to develop better understanding, build mutual trust and respect, and together find peaceful settlement solutions for global conflicts as well as urgent global challenges of our time. Second, rediscovering the principle of unity within diversity and strengthening inter-religious and intercultural dialogue with the central role of ASEAN to promote peace, better understanding through religious dialogue, religious cooperation and action, promote shared civilizational values and cultural pluralism and peace through interfaith and inter-ethnic dialogue, as well as other related ASEAN documents. In conclusion, once again, we highly appreciate the government of Republic of Indonesia and the NGO for their patronage to promote the strengthening inter-religious and intercultural dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now let us invite Master Hu Chenglin, Vice President of Taoist Association of China. He will speak in Chinese, but the translation is available in your chair. Please, 5 minutes. Let us give applause first.
尊敬的主席先生，尊敬的各位宗教界的朋友，各位来宾，大家上午好。今天，宗教领袖们在美丽的雅加达齐聚一堂，分享彼此宗教传统如何支持和加强世界和谐，以促进整个东盟地区的和平、安全和繁荣。作为中国宗教界的代表，能够受邀参会，并在开幕式上致辞，我感到非常的荣幸。在中国，佛教、道教、伊斯兰教、天主教、基督教等各种宗教和谐相处，共同发展。我是一个道教徒，道教是世界上最古老的宗教之一，奉行和谐、包容、和平、慈爱等普世价值观，始终以海纳百川、开放包容的广阔胸襟，不断吸收借鉴其他宗教的优秀文明成果，积极与其他宗教文明相互适应、和睦共处，在全球40多个国家和地区落地生根。在印尼，道教也取得了不错的发展，得到了印尼政府的大力支持。印尼三教庙宇联合会与中国道教协会长期以来保持着友好的交往关系，双方多次举办道教文化活动，推动了两国的宗教文化交流融通。各位，我们都是怀揣着追求和平、发展、公平等全人类共同价值的坚定信念来雅加达参会的。各宗教应携起手来，运用自身的影响力和号召力，为增进全人类福祉、促进东盟地区和平繁荣贡献智慧和力量。 最后，预祝此次会议取得圆满成功，希望宗教界的交流继往开来，更续不息。谢谢大家 ，Thank you。
谢谢 ，Thank you. Let us now invite His Holiness Swami Mitranada, Director of National Project All India Cina Maya Yuva Kendra, with 5 minutes.
My salutations to everyone present here. Namaste. The objective of religion is to see the human evolve to divine. All of us are born human. By the time we die, we should become divine. This is the objective of religion, and every book, every path aims at it. That born human, practice, by the time you have to exit, be divine. This is the fundamental philosophy which we should never ever forget. Now, in all religions, similarities are there at the practice level. How we pray, how we invoke. There are similarities at the early stages, at the practice level. But differences are at the destination or of the interpretation of the destination. This is the area we need to sit and bring it out clearly. Similarities are very much there. Somebody squats and prays, somebody kneels and prays, somebody sits in Padmasana and prays. Different ways we pray. In prayer, we are same. In various values we practice, we are same. The destination has differences. At least the interpretation has brought about the differences. In such meetings, that is exactly what we have to discuss. So in the interfaith, the first point, we, people involved with religion, we must say very clearly, all paths are valid. The conflict will end only on recognizing that. Every path is valid. The moment we say all paths are valid, we become accommodative. There is a beautiful sloka in Hindu philosophy which says, like the rain waters, when it rains, the water which comes down becomes streams and go to the ocean. Akashat patitam toyam yata sagaram pratigacchati. Similarly, wherever we offer our salutations, in whichever way that reaches the God. Sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pratigacchati. This is that accommodativeness. If we have this accommodativeness that every path is valid, then we respect everyone and we encourage them to follow their path. Hinduism, the oldest religion, has shown to the world that we can coexist. Because Hinduism doesn't have one single book nor a single founder. Imagine a religion which doesn't have one book or a single founder. We have many founders, collective, and many books, a library of books. Just like science. Science is not confined to one scientist, collective. Collective observations of different scientists have put together is called science. Similarly, different evolved humans observed various things, collected together is what the Hindu philosophy is. That's why we coexist. And do we worship one form? No, we worship many forms. So for ages, coexistence is natural for a Hindu. And when the differences come, we have to bring back the idea of coexistence again and again. At some ages, the differences do come. It is our responsibility, we the humans, involved with religion should inspire our people and tell them all paths are valid. Respect the other person for what that person chooses to walk. Respect that person. Let's not call anybody undivine. That creates conflict. Let's look at everybody. We are born human, we are divine, potentially divine, we will reach divine. So when we remove the words like undivine, then mutual respect would be there for everyone. This will bring that brotherhood. This will bring coexistence. This is the way forward. Let us stand up and declare every religion is a beautiful religion. Every religion is valid. Every path is valid. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we come to our last speaker from Malaysia, Muhammad Shamsuri bin Ghazali. Let us invite to the stage with 5 minutes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam damai. Alhamdulillah wa syukrulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Terima kasih Bapak Moderator, jajaran pimpinan Nahdlatul Ulama yang saya hormati. Begitu juga sahabat-sahabat panel pimpinan agama dari pelbagai negara yang telah pun diundang. Hadirin hadirat yang berbahagia, dan tidak dilupakan kekanda saya, kakak saya, Loh Pailing yang telah pun membentangkan di awalnya tadi. Baik, special sebenarnya Malaysia 2 orang ni. Tapi itulah uniknya jiran Indonesia, negara sahabat. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dirahmati Allah, today I would like to speak in bahasa, okay? Di Asia Tenggara, selain daripada Indonesia, Malaysia juga ditakdirkan untuk dihuni dan didiami oleh 33.4 juta rakyat. Berbanding Indonesia sangat kecil. Indonesia 270 juta, Pak, ya. Okey, sama dengan Jakarta sahaja, 33 juta ini. Tetapi alhamdulillah telah dihuni dan didiami oleh pelbagai bangsa, agama dan sosial budaya. Saya merujuk kepada data yang telah dikaji oleh Jabatan Perangkaan Negara Malaysia. Populasi masyarakat Islam, sekadar perkongsian, di Malaysia seramai 61.32%. Dan penganut agama Buddha 19.84%. Betul tak, ya? Kemudian Kristian 9.24%, Hindu 6.27%, Konghucu ataupun Tao 1.26%, dan selain-lainnya agama yang lain. Baik, inilah wajah ataupun multiracial yang wujud di negara Malaysia, negara saya. Dan sememangnya toleransi hidup beragama ini, seperti juga Indonesia, telah pun subur diamalkan dalam segenap peringkat usia, sama ada tua, muda, belia dan sebagainya. Dan toleransi ini adalah satu semangat yang cuba ataupun yang telah dibudayakan sebaiknya oleh para pemimpin ataupun masyarakat yang berada di Malaysia. Alhamdulillah, tahun ini insya-Allah 31 Ogos nanti genap 66 tahun Malaysia menikmati kemerdekaan. Semangat untuk hidup bersama ini tetap subur dalam jiwa sanubari rakyat Malaysia. Namun, langit tidak selalunya cerah. Rambut sama hitam, hati lain-lain. Begitu juga di negara yang lain. Ternyata ya, membina sesuatu keharmonian itu cukup mudah. Tetapi untuk mempertahankannya ada juga cabaran ataupun mehnah tribulasi yang wujud dalam usaha kita untuk mempertahankan toleransi beragama ini. Jadi lantaran itulah seperti juga Indonesia, mohon izin kalau boleh saya bacakan, ada Pancasila. Panca bermaksud 5, sila bermaksud prinsip. Ada 5 prinsip. Ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, kemanusiaan yang adil dan beradab, persatuan Indonesia, kerakyatan yang dipimpin oleh hikmat kebijaksanaan dalam pemusyawaratan, dan yang kelima, keadilan sosial bagi seluruh rakyat Indonesia. Begitulah juga negara saya Malaysia dalam mewujudkan ataupun memastikan masyarakat berbilang bangsa, agama dan sosial budaya ini hidup dengan damai dan rukun, maka rukun negara diperkenalkan. Rukun negara juga ada 5. Pertama sekali, kepercayaan kepada Tuhan, kesetiaan kepada raja dan negara, keluruhan perlembagaan, kedaulatan undang-undang, kesopanan dan kesusilaan. Alhamdulillah, 66 tahun merdeka, maka kerajaan hari ini memperkenalkan Malaysia Madani ke arah memperkukuhkan rukun negara dan program-program ataupun agenda-agenda yang telah pun diatur oleh pemimpin-pemimpin terdahulu untuk menjamin kerukunan hidup bermasyarakat di Malaysia. Jadi alhamdulillah melalui Malaysia Madani ini kita berharap Malaysia bersama negara-negara di ASEAN yang lain dapat hidup rukun dan terus hingga ke akhirnya. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dirahmati Allah, untuk akhirnya saya memetik ataupun saya tertarik dengan kata sambutan yang telah diberikan oleh Bapa Presiden di awal acara kita tadi. Begitu juga kata sambutan daripada Ketua Umum Nahdlatul Ulama. Saya fikir ini adalah satu harapan yang cukup besar yang perlu disambut dan dijayakan oleh segenap daripada kita yang berada di dalam dewan ini khususnya, untuk kita terjemahkan dengan lebih tuntas. Dan usaha-usaha inilah merupakan satu tugas yang murni daripada pihak pemerintah untuk kita mewajah ASEAN yang sejahtera dalam bingkai keharmonian. Dan akhirnya, dengan nama Tuhan yang Maha Pemurah lagi Maha Penyayang, marilah bersama-sama kita pelihara bahtera toleransi beragama ini agar kita bisa melayari bahtera dunia yang luas terbentang dan syarat dengan dugaan. Jangan kita biarkan ada puak-puak ataupun organisasi ataupun mereka secara individu ataupun berjemaah yang cuba untuk merobek ataupun menggugat keharmonian yang telah pun sedia ada di ASEAN ini. Saya fikir insya-Allah melalui acara yang telah diagendakan oleh Nahdlatul Ulama ini, syabas dan tahniah, satu forum yang cukup baik untuk kita terus menyuburkan, memugar semangat toleransi beragama di negara-negara ASEAN. Itu saja. Wallahu alam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. We would like to congratulate to the Central Board of Nahdlatul Ulama, both steering and organizing, both Syuriah and Tanfidiyah, all provincial offices, all leaders of Kiai, Bunyai, Cruz, all leaders of different faiths from different ASEAN countries. Thank you to all speakers. Let us give applause once again. May all religions with their religious leaders serve rahmatan lil alamin. Sabbe sata bhavantu sukhitata. All sentient beings, be biological or non-biological, all might be happy. Allahumma waffiq ila aqwamit tariq. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, leaders. Please remain on stage. As a symbol of gratitude and respect, Vice Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama, Kiai Haji Amin Said Husni, will give a token of appreciation to the speakers for this session.
Dan sebagai rasa terima kasih dan penghormatan, kami mohon kepada Kiai Haji Amin Said Husni berkenan untuk memberikan kenang-kenangan bagi para pembicara di sesi ini. Baik, terima kasih. Mohon sekali lagi aplaus yang meriah untuk kita semua. Selanjutnya kami persilahkan kepada para speaker untuk dapat kembali ke tempat.
For the next session, we would like to invite on stage Dr. Timothy S. Shah, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Center for Shared Civilizational Values, and Distinguished Research Scholar in Politics from University of Dallas. Dr. Timothy S. Shah will moderate the next session, titled Rediscovering and Re-Enlivening the Principle of Unity Within Diversity in ASEAN and Throughout the Indo-Pacific Region.
Representatives of ASEAN nations, distinguished religious leaders from Indonesia and from throughout ASEAN, friends and leaders, scholars from around the world. It's a great privilege and honor to be here, part of this inaugural ASEAN Intercultural and Interreligious Dialogue conference. You're going to now enjoy, I trust, a rich panel discussion and dialogue featuring remarkable religious leaders and scholars from three very important countries in ASEAN. And I'd like to invite my panel, the members of my panel, to please come forward and have a seat. I think we now have the right number of chairs. So I'll invite Venerable Bhante Sri Pannyavaro to come forward, Dr. Teresita Cruz del Rosario, and Dr. Nadirsyah Hosen to please come forward and have a seat on stage. And as my fellow panelists come forward, I'm just going to make a few brief remarks concerning the subject of our panel. Our panel will discuss rediscovering and re-enlivening the principle of unity within diversity in ASEAN and throughout the Indo-Pacific. And we're going to explore three topics underneath the theme of rediscovering and re-enlivening the principle of unity within diversity in ASEAN. Our first topic is going to be Bhinneka, Tunggal Ika, and Pancasila. Our second topic will be historical processes that contributed to the weakening of the region's ancient civilizational unity. And finally, we will discuss ASEAN's role in re-enlivening unity within diversity in Southeast Asia. Now, a major premise of our discussion is that the ASEAN region, this great region of what is sometimes called Monsoon Asia, or Southeast Asia, or Maritime Asia, that as diverse as this region is, it also has a civilizational unity. There's diversity, yes, but there is a unity within the diversity that makes it possible for the diversity to be a blessing, to be consistent with harmony and peaceful coexistence. But many people wonder, does this region have a civilizational unity? Is this region, in fact, a unified, at least in some sense, civilization? It's a good question, and many people have actually written about, of course, whether this is a region that is marked by a civilizational unity. 30 years ago, the well-known political scientist Samuel Huntington famously wrote an article called The Clash of Civilizations. And I have the issue of Foreign Affairs, America's most influential foreign affairs journal, in which Samuel Huntington published an article that has been the most discussed article in the history of foreign affairs. It came out exactly 30 years ago in the summer of 1993. And famously, Samuel Huntington described 7 or 8 civilizations all around the world. And he said that even though many people thought at the time, at the end of the Cold War, that the world was achieving a kind of unity, a kind of cosmopolitan, unified New World Order, Samuel Huntington said that in fact, we're going to see increasing cultural conflict between the world's great civilizations. And he pointed out that all of these different civilizations, Western civilization, Hindu civilization, Eastern Orthodox civilization, that all of these civilizations are defined by a unity around a single religion. Western civilization is organized around Western Christianity, he thought. Hindu civilization is organized around Hinduism. Eastern Orthodox civilization, of course, is organized around Eastern Orthodox Christianity. But as much as I think, and I was a student of Samuel Huntington, as much as I think that his contributions were helpful, I also think he made a very, very serious, perhaps several very serious errors, serious mistakes. One is that he did not pay attention to Southeast Asia. And he did not really understand that Southeast Asia constitutes a distinct civilization, but that it's the only civilization in the world that is not organized around one single founding religion. Unlike all the other civilizations in the rest of the world, whether it's Western civilization, Hindu civilization, Eastern Orthodox civilization, Japanese civilization, Chinese civilization, which all generally are based on one single religious or ethical tradition, Southeast Asia is the only great civilization that is constituted, that in its very DNA, in its very identity, is not founded on one single religious or cultural tradition. It is the great civilization that is a multiplicity of civilizations. It is the great civilization that represents a confluence of civilizations. It is the great civilization that, in fact, allows a multiplicity of cultures, religions, and civilizations to coexist on the basis of equality and on the basis of harmony. As we began the conference this morning, we were treated to a beautiful indigenous Indonesian dance. And as the dancers came onto the stage, the phrase that flashed across the screen was celebrating the source of growth. Beautiful phrase, and we can ask ourselves in the context of ASEAN, in the context of Indonesia's chairmanship of ASEAN, what is the source of growth? We assume, of course, that for there to be growth, you need financial capital. For there to be growth, there needs to be human capital. But what about spiritual capital? What about cultural capital? The purpose of our panel now is to discuss the fact that for there to be real growth in ASEAN, for ASEAN to be an epicentrum of growth, we must draw on the multiplicity of our spiritual and religious and cultural traditions, our spiritual capital. And we must not only draw on that capital, but we need to make new investments in that capital. We are living off the capital that our parents and grandparents, our ancestors in this region built up. They made investments in creating a beautiful civilizational mosaic, and yet we must ask ourselves, is that civilizational mosaic weakening? And what do we need to do in order to reinvest in the spiritual and moral capital that makes our diversity possible, the spiritual and moral capital that makes Southeast Asia a unique civilization of civilizations, a civilization that is a confluence of civilizations, and in a world of cultural conflict, a civilization that can teach other civilizations and other countries and other societies how civilizations and cultures can coexist peacefully. I am truly honored and delighted that to engage all of these issues and topics, we have a remarkably distinguished panel, which I'm now going to introduce. We first have from Indonesia, one of Indonesia's most respected and preeminent, and let me emphasize, most loved Buddhist leaders, the Venerable Bhante Sri Pannyavaro Mahatera, who's known to many of you and loved by many of you. He is the head of Sangha Theravada Indonesia. He is the abbot of Vihara Mendut near Borobudur in Central Java, and he is the vice president of the World Buddhist Sangha Council, and he'll be making remarks at the beginning of our panel in just a moment. Delighted that we also have Dr. Teresita Cruz del Rosario, who is from the Philippines, but she has had a career that has spanned more than one country in the ASEAN region and other countries as well. She's lived and worked in Singapore, particularly, and maintains close ties with Singapore, so she, in a sense, is representing both the Philippines and Singapore. She was formerly visiting professor at the New York University in Abu Dhabi and also at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. She's currently affiliated with the Asia Research Institute at the National University of Singapore, where she is a senior research associate. She's written numerous books in the tradition of political sociology and public policy. Her latest book is a remarkable memoir about her experience of the COVID-19 pandemic called Far From My Hospital Bed, Reflections on the Pandemic and Society, published by Penguin in 2000, 2022. And then finally, we have Professor Nadirsyah Hosen, who's known to many of our friends in Nahdlatul Ulama. He is a proud son of Nahdlatul Ulama, who is now a scholar of Islamic law in Australia. He's been working as a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Law at Monash University since July 2015, and he's currently the Deputy Associate Dean International at the Faculty of Law at Monash. He's internationally known for his expertise in Sharia and Indonesian law, and he's a board member of several top journals in comparative law and law. Before we begin, I'd like to underscore that we are organizing this panel not as a series of speeches, but as a dialogue in keeping with the spirit of this conference, which is precisely to foster a dialogue and conversation. And after we have our own dialogue for a few minutes, we will invite you to offer your questions and comments to enrich our discussion. As we begin, I'm first delighted to ask Venerable Bhante Sri Pannyavaro to make some remarks in response to a question that I asked him some weeks ago as we were talking about this panel. And I'm going to ask Bhante Sri Pannyavaro to speak a bit about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika and Pancasila in Indonesia. And it'll be wonderful, and I know you're prepared to do this, if you would please speak about the great Buddhist heritage in Indonesia and throughout Southeast Asia, and how that heritage has helped to build a spirit of mutual respect and harmony and tolerance. Thank you very much, Venerable Sri Bhante Pannyavaro. We look forward to hearing you now. And you can stay there. Yes.
Eminences, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my thankful to His Excellency Kiai Haji Yahya Cholil Staquf, General Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama Central Board, for inviting me through Kiai Haji Muhammad Cholil Holland Tyler and Dr. Timothy Shah to talk about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Please allow me to convey a simple explanation of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika and Pancasila. Indonesia possesses a rich spiritual heritage, not only from its indigenous roots, but also from various religions that have been present in the country for centuries, including Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Taoism, Confucianism, Sikhs, and others. The spiritual wealth of these religions has played a significant role in shaping Indonesian culture, which is uniquely characterized by its presence across 1,000 islands, numerous ethnic groups, and many local languages. This cultural harmony amid differences is referred to as the national cultural identity, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, meaning unity in diversity. The phrase Bhinneka Tunggal Ika was taken by the earlier leaders of the Indonesian Republic from the ancient adapted inscription of Sutasoma, a Jataka theme from the Buddhist canon Tripitaka, written by Empu Tantular, a Buddhist poet and scholar around 600 years ago. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika fostered the spirit of gotong royong, meaning mutual cooperation, which promotes attitude and behavior of mutual cooperation among members of Indonesian society and all aspects of life. This spirit of mutual cooperation, which is deep-rooted in the spirituality of all religious teaching too, has long enriched the nation morality. It gave rise to humanism and national unity, playing an important role in the democratic life of Indonesia, where consultation are pursued toward prosperity and justice for all. These fundamental principles are encapsulated in Pancasila, the 5 principles laid down by the founding father of the nation, Sukarno. Mutual cooperation and Pancasila are not confined to Indonesia alone, but represent universal values. Through this forum, we aim to share the value of mutual cooperation, gotong royong, and Pancasila with the people of ASEAN and the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Terima kasih. Thank you very much, dear Bhante Sri Pannyavaro. We're deeply grateful to you for being with us and embodying and sharing the spirit of Gotong Royong. Thank you very much. I'm delighted that Dr. Cruz Rosario will now speak, and I want to ask you, Tess, if I may, to speak a bit about the civilizational unity of this great region that included the Philippines, which you know well as a proud daughter of the Philippines, but also how that unity has been challenged historically. And thanks very much.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to come and speak. It's always a pleasure to come to Indonesia. Being a Filipino, we really share a lot of cultural, social, and very much so historical affinities, which I shall emphasize in my brief 5-minute remarks. So let me just talk about civilizational unity in this part of the world, and not so much this time about religion, but rather about trade. And I would argue that the civilizational unity in Southeast Asia was largely a function of inter-ocean or maritime trade. Various scholars and historians have documented the vigorous trade networks that connected the vast oceans. In the early 10th and mid-13th century, an economic boom occurred that linked the maritime trade among the seas of Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, and the South China Sea. Particularly during the 10th century, trade across the Indian Ocean linked Southeast Asia and the Arab world, including Persia, connected by a maritime trade route that passed through southern India, Srivijaya in Sumatra, Champa, that is now central Vietnam, Burma, Cambodia, and Laos. Arab Persian, and Jewish traders, according to the historian Jeff Wade, were plying the Indian subcontinent, traveling all the way to and from China to Oman, passing through Palembang in Sumatra. The goods that were traded were silk, textiles, and in particular ikat, which has become very famous, rice from Indonesia, and ceramics featured very prominently. So let me go to the Philippines and how the Philippines played into this civilizational unity. Two islands in particular, Butuan and Mindoro, in the southern part of the Philippines, just above Mindanao, provides evidence of incorporation into the maritime trading networks. And these two islands were known as stopping points for the voyages of the Chinese Admiral Zheng Ho on his way to Makassar and Palembang in Indonesia. Apart from this exchange of goods and people, of course, were cultural exchanges, particularly ideas, beliefs, and in particular, religious ideas and practices. The spread of Buddhism as early as the 7th century, traveling through monks and Hindu merchants to the Philippines, produced a syncretic variety. The influence of the Sanskrit language is very widespread. Tagalog, our national language, is 25% Sanskrit and Tamil. So terms, for example, like dukha, meaning suffering, buddhi, knowledge, or mukha, face, are very much in the Tagalog language. Archaeological findings also suggest that Buddhism and Hinduism arrived through Chinese traders from southern China. At the same time that this was happening in the 10th to the 13th century, a parallel process was happening out in the Middle East. The historian Janet Abu-Lighod, in her book entitled Before European Hegemony, prompted a similar, also a rather different pattern. In the 13th century, the shift of maritime routes from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea occasioned an outflow of missionaries, teachers, and traders from the Hadramaut region in what is now southern Yemen. Finding their way to Southeast Asia into regions as far-flung as Ethiopia, Sudan, India, and China, the Hadramis formed an elaborate network of migrants that has influenced the long-term socio-cultural formations in these countries, the outcomes of which continue to be evident today. In the Philippines, a wave of Arab migrations in the 13th century brought Islam to the archipelago alongside the establishments of trading outposts in Sulu, the southernmost island, with Chinese traders. So you can imagine that the Philippines was right smack in the middle of different civilizations, Chinese, Buddhist, and Islam. Let me just briefly address the collapse or the challenges to this civilizational unity. Very briefly, the arrival of Catholicism in 1521. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese seafarer, lands in the island of Homonhon in the province, in the island of Visayas, which, by the way, is very closely affiliated with the Srivijayan Empire, and thus the title of the name of the island. In 1571, Magellan planted the flag of Spain and named the islands Philippines after King Felipe of Spain. And very soon after, the Catholic, different religious orders arrived. The Augustinians, the Franciscans, the Dominicans, the Jesuits, and the Augustinians. This interesting feature in this conventional historical narrative brought the arrival of Catholic religious orders to the islands, resulting in the mass conversion of the inhabitants to Catholicism. And because of this, I would say, almost wiped out the Hindu-Buddhist civilizational unity that was apparent before the arrival of Catholics. In effect, the net effect of this widespread adherence to Catholicism is now practiced by 85% of the Philippine population. Let me just briefly conclude that, and we can discuss this later, that the Philippines is, I would argue, an instance or an illustration of how civilizational pluralisms can coexist. We have been the site of Christian civilization, Christian Western civilization, but also of Hindu and Buddhist civilizations, and these have endured over thousands of years. Unfortunately, the Buddhist Hindu civilization is now only 2% of the population. But I would argue and plead that one of the, what I call the civilizational problematic of this time, of our time, is to address the question of whether we can create a pluralist world order that offers stability and cooperation, harmony and difference. And because civilizations are rarely monolithic, in fact, as the Philippine case illustrates, civilizational hybridity is very much possible. I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Dr. Teresita Cruz del Rosario, for a magnificent set of remarks that just beautifully responded to the issues and questions that are on the table. You followed Bhante Sri Pannyavaro's magnificent remarks with magnificent remarks of your own. So you have a tough act to follow, Nadirsyah, Hosen, though I have every confidence in you. Delighted now to turn to you, Professor Hosen. You are an eminent scholar of religion and law in Indonesia and throughout Southeast Asia, and of course you are have been part of Nahdlatul Ulama. And I'd like to ask you, in your capacity, to speak about how the countries of ASEAN and the peoples and religious communities of ASEAN can practically take steps to re-enliven this beautiful civilizational heritage, beautiful civilizational unity that Bhante Sri Pannyavaro and Dr. Cruz del Rosario have just described. Thank you, Professor Hosen.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa bihi nasta'in ala umuri waddin. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain amma ba'd. Thank you, Pak Tim. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Tess. So thanks to the previous speakers, they are all two brilliant speakers that we have. They set up a nice foundation of what I'm going to share with you. We know that from the two speakers, ASEAN inherits this principle of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or what we call it a unity within diversity. But the reality now, unlike the Sriwijaya kingdom many centuries ago, we are now divided into many different countries in the region. So what does this current situation tell us? I have 5 points that I would like to highlight, Pak Tim. So let us be honest and realistic of the current situation. And this is really important approach, I think, that we admit and identify the problems we have before we can move forward to revive these Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity within diversity principles. So, number one, we don't speak the same language. ASEAN has around 630 million people. And then its charter seeks to promote an ASEAN identity by fostering greater awareness of the region, and its 14 principles already admit what we are discussing today. The 14 principles include respect for different cultures, languages, and religions of the peoples in ASEAN, while emphasizing their common values in the spirit of unity in diversity. So since the beginning in ASEAN Charter, they already recognize what we discussed today. But let me highlight one point, that different languages. There are around 1,000 different languages spoken in the territory. then it is crucial to note that at the beginning, during ASEAN formation, English was adopted as the only de facto working and official language. But we know for sure not everybody in the region speaks English. Even English is considered as a foreign language. Maybe in the ASEAN formal meeting, the government representative will talk in English, including our workshop today. But at the society level, people speak the local language. Then the challenge is, if you want to revive the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika principles, unity within diversity, is how to maintain indigenous languages and their inclusion in education in ways that are empowering and complementary rather than competitive. Second point, we don't have the same status of economic development. Some countries like Singapore and Brunei are rich, but others are not. Then the question is how to maintain the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika principles, unity within diversity in ASEAN, if we are not equal. ASEAN, we know that ASEAN wants to establish what they call it AEC, ASEAN Economic Community. With a market size of 2.3 trillion and 600 million people, AEC, ASEAN Economic Community, aims to achieve a single integrated market through the process of regional economic integrations. The challenge is how to maintain this Bhinneka Tunggal Ika principle in the AEC Blueprint 2025. And AEC is critical in developing the ASEAN as a region and making it one of the most competitive economic blocs in the world. But we don't want to see some disadvantages for those weak states with less border control. It is enough that we see problems in ASEAN with human trafficking that leads to modern slavery in this region. Number three, we don't have the same currency. Singaporean dollar is too strong for Indonesian rupiah, for instance. But the Indonesian rupiah is a bit higher than the Vietnamese dong. And we don't have an ASEAN version of euro. That's the currency in EU. Right? We don't have ASEAN euro or ASEAN dollar, for instance. Number four, we don't have the same legal systems in ASEAN. We have common law, civil law, socialist law, Islamic law, and also indigenous law in ASEAN. And because of this, we don't have a legal mechanism at the ASEAN level to solve our problem and tension. We don't have, for instance, an ASEAN Court of Justice. So what instrument and tool that can we use to solve the crisis and also enforce its decision among ASEAN members during conflict and tensions? We simply don't have that mechanism right now. Or will religion make the crisis more complicated? From R20 last year, we want to use religion as part of the solution, right? But if we don't have the mechanism, then what should we do? Number five, finally, in trying to revive or re-enliven the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika principle, politically speaking, our ASEAN governments put more effort into maintaining harmony in society. We hear a lot about that word, harmony, today. Because we don't want to see civil riots based on religious or ethnic differences, right? And to some extent, because we want to maintain harmony, then we don't want to accommodate different views. This means that the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika principle could turn into non-democratic governments in the name of preserving harmony and unity in society. The challenge is how to implement the principle of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity within diversity, without compromising individual choice. This principle should also apply at the individual or personal level, not only at the society level. To what extent should governments facilitate the differences in society? And to what extent that the governments need to intervene in religious matters in order to maintain harmony? these are 5 points that I want to share with you, and I'm happy to have further discussion with all of you. Thank you, Fatim.
Thank you very, very much. We are now going to invite a dialogue with you, and also I'm going to invite the panelists, if they wish, to begin a dialogue with each other. I first want to ask our amazing panelists who've given us extremely rich reflections in a very concise form, which I greatly appreciate. We appreciate it in part because lunch is approaching, and we don't want to keep our hungry audience from lunch too long, but I'm grateful that you were so brief and concise and cogent. If you would like to respond to each other, I would invite you to do that. If anyone would like to respond to each other, Tess or Nadir, if you'd like to respond to anything that was said, then I invite you to do that. While I invite members of the audience to offer a question or comment, I believe there are microphones which you can use to ask questions. If you would, just raise your hand. I'll try to call on you. And I'd ask you to identify yourself, ask a brief question or make a brief comment, and then I'll invite our panelists to respond. So anyone would like to engage the panelists in a discussion or ask a question or make a comment, or if panelists would like to engage each other in response to anything that was said, I invite you to do that as well. And their microphones are now going out to the floor. Yes, my friend from India, Sheikh Syed Salman Chishti. Please, yes, please stand up, and thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum and greeting of peace. It's an honor to be here. Just would like to have some reflections about, you discuss in details about the unity and diversity, but at the same time, from centuries, Southeast Asia, and particularly in India as well, we have that spiritual unity, and that's a huge strength of the spiritual understanding between various cultures and traditions. So if you can just reflect about the spiritual unity, and that is so much important and relevant in the 21st century for the youth to understand.
Thank you very much. So spiritual unity among youth in particular. Anyone like to respond, Tess or Nadir? Thank you.
Yes, I think that's really an important point. I recall that when we had R20 last year, most of the speakers and even most of the participants are quite old, right? And then the question is, where are the young people, right? And then this begs the questions: what is the future of religion in this region, right? In Australia, where I live and work, many worship places now empty. It doesn't matter from which religion. Now, it is difficult in the era of digital communications that we use the same method or approach or even a content to the young people. We could not relate to them, right? So then I think if you want to, once again, if you want to, on one hand, you want to maintain unity within diversity, but on the other hand, we also want to put religion as part of the solution, not part of the problem, then obviously we need to include these young people. And then I think your term about spiritual unity, I think that's a good term. I like that term. But then what it is in practice, right? So I think that's really a big questions. If you want to move forward to maintain this harmony, especially among the young generation. They call it Z generation right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tess, any thoughts on that question? Or on anything that Professor Hosen may have said?
Rather than spiritual unity, especially for the young people today, I would propose spiritual diversity. I think that, and I agree very much with the esteemed religious leader from India who this morning who said that there are many paths to the divine. And I would encourage to take as many paths as you wish, because there is a plurality of religious practices that are equally valid and leads us to this path to divinity. Especially for young people today, and I'm speaking on behalf of the next generation of Filipinos and even Singaporeans who I've had the privilege to know a few of them, that they would like to have the freedom to choose how they worship and who they worship, and to get to the path of divinity. And so rather than spiritual unity, I would propose, because of the Philippine experience historically, that we have been Catholics, we have been Buddhists, we have been Hindus, we have been Muslims, we are all of those, to allow this tolerance. And based on that tolerance for diversities, where I think we will find that spiritual unity.
Thank you very much. Yes, I see a hand at the back. Yes, and so yes, and then we'll have Venerable Saranankara from Malaysia. So yes. Oh, okay. Well, let's start with Venerable Saranankara, and we'll get to you, sir, in a moment. The microphone went to our friend from Malaysia first. Please, Venerable Saranankara from Malaysia. Welcome, sir.
I think so. Okay. Yes. A very good afternoon, Bhante, as venerable panelist speakers. It's a very beautiful presentation. From morning to until now, I can see the different religious faith giving the same message. The beautiful part of that, the Indonesia implement that a great policy in the school level. ASEAN build the addressing political as well as the economical addressing, including for the religions, is about one of the beautiful steps you taken ASEAN. I appreciate what Indonesia done for the school level. Is there any way we can have ASEAN countries get together, implement younger generation from kindergarten to the primary, secondary, before the youth? We had to target in the 2020. Is there other way? Is there any way the ASEAN can implement, being the policymakers, political leaders are gathering to implement this policy strongly from a young generation to, and also the grassroots level. If we can implement, there's a great unity in the whole community. I'm not sure what way we can implement. I think this the best platform. ASEAN being policymakers, they can propose something. It's going to be wonderful. I don't know what's the penalties into this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Venerable Saranankara. Magnificent, focused, practical question about whether there's a way for the mechanisms of ASEAN to promote models for promoting interreligious harmony through the school curriculum. And of course, we saw a beautiful example from State Middle School 1 in Magelang with these wonderful students who were awarded earlier for their working to make their school an epicentrum of harmony in Indonesia. We have a question in the back. Yes, you have the microphone. Wonderful. Yes, please identify yourself, sir,
Thank
and
you.
We'll look forward to hearing your question.
Thank you, Timothy. My name is Martin Sinaga from National Council of Churches of Indonesia. What Mr. Nadirsyah mentioned is very serious. Is there any currency crossing ASEAN if unity should be there, beside diversity, which is our Madam Teresita mentioned? If I travel through ASEAN, I feel one religious currency that can be used. I call it mindfulness. The Java people call it Eling. If you travel to Thailand, if you understand yourself, you can communicate easily. So mindfulness may be the spiritual resources of ASEAN, which may be a kind of currency crossing all diversity difficulties, economic and political. Thank you. That's my
Thank you.
understanding. Please reply.
Thank you very much. A very compelling and fascinating answer to the question of what is the unity that unifies spiritually and civilizationally this otherwise very diverse region. I'm going to invite our panel, any panelists who wish to respond to these questions or comments. One question about education, another question about mindfulness being a basis for spiritual unity. Nadir?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good idea, that we need to find something that we could share together. Right?
Oh.
So mindfulness could be one of them. But then, of course, the challenge is, maybe because I'm from law faculty, but then the challenge is how we make this happen, right, about mindfulness. Whether we just let every religion to define and think about what mindfulness means, or whether we require the government's interventions, like let's say in terms of curriculum of the schools. That's a good example from the question here. Or what else that we want to make this into a practice. Because if we talk about abstract things, everything looks fine, looks good. Even mindfulness is an abstract thing, right? But then the challenge is how to make this into reality, right? And then there will be a confrontation about this mindfulness when we come into the reality, right? So I think, so I'm not saying that this is not a good one, I'm saying that this is a really good one. But then, of course, that I become a devil advocate here. I'm trying to trigger further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadir. Tess, would you like to have the last word?
The last word is, that's a tough question. Again, I want to promote the idea more of pluralism and hybridity rather than unity. Or rather, to make pluralism and hybridity as the foundation for unity. That we somehow have to allow our differences and make the acceptance of those differences and the toleration of those differences as the basis of our unity. And so looking for a currency might be a tough project. But advocating for tolerance because we are so different is, I think, a good starting point for the basis of what unites us.
Thank you very much. You return to the beginning of our panel, in which I pointed out that in many ways Southeast Asia is a unique civilization in being precisely a multiplicity of civilizations, a civilization that has multiplicity and diversity baked into it or embedded in its very foundations and identity. We've had a wonderful discussion. We were scheduled to end at 12:45. It's now 12:49. So we are nearly on time. I don't want to keep us from lunch any longer. We've had a wonderful discussion. Of course, this is only the beginning of an important dialogue about what is the unity that we share amidst our diversity, and how do we continue to make our diversity a source of growth, a source of harmony, and a source of peace and prosperity throughout our great and beautiful nations of Southeast Asia. Please join me in thanking our panel, who were absolutely marvelous. Teresita, Cruz, Rosario, Bhante, Sri Pannyavaro, and Dr. Nadirsyah Hosen. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll resume, I believe, in about an hour and 10 minutes. What time do we resume? At 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. So we enjoy your lunch and enjoy your refreshment until 2 o'clock. Thanks very much. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Timothy and Panelist, please remain on stage to receive a token of appreciation. Dan kami mohon untuk penyerahan token of appreciation dilakukan oleh Khatib Suriah Pengurus Besar Nahdlatul Ulama, Kiai Haji Faiz Syukron Ma'mun. Baik, kami persilahkan untuk berkenan berfoto bersama. Oke, thank you, please be seated. Bapak dan Ibu, kini saatnya kita menikmati makan siang. Dan perlu kami informasikan untuk makan siang berada di sebelah kanan Bapak Ibu. Di foyer ada di sebelah kanan dan perlu kami informasikan nanti untuk dapat kembali lagi ke tempat acara pada pukul 2. Sekali lagi kami informasikan untuk nanti dapat kembali ke tempat lokasi acara pada pukul 2. Dan untuk itu kami ucapkan selamat menikmati makan siang. Terima kasih.